You know, I was thinking, one thing I just wanna put out there very quick.
Yeah.
I just throw everything in here and then I can.
One thing I think we need to be really sensitive to is the fact that there is a steering committee of the Pollinator Pathways Group. And our work on the Conservation Board is as one of the partners. So I just think some of the decisions that we're making obviously are Conservation Board specific. And some of them I think we need to bring back to that bigger body to make decisions.
Who's on the steering committee that's not on the conservation board? Kenny?
So the members of the steering committee who are on the Conservation Board are Missy, Melanie, Lucille, Sue. And then in addition are Kent, Thomas, Karen Basic,
Okay.
Gail Markells,
Right.
Barbara Napoli, and, thank you. And who else? Anyone else I'm missing, Sue?
I think that's it, right? They're
Barbara,
Kat,
Kent,
Barbara,
Gail.
Gail.
And
Okay,
Karen.
so we're not making decisions, we're just gathering information that we can bring to them.
Right, I just was thinking, because it's so many of us wear different hats, and so it's easy while we're here to kind of be in
This
that
thing is correct.
double hat.
Right.
And I just want us to have that consciousness
Be
of, yeah,
sensitive.
you know.
Okay.
So you want, in other words,
Yeah, but it
percentages
doesn't
of the
add up.
total. Oh, no, I don't think there's probably certain, there's no private properties, what is that?
This is supposed to be, town of Newcastle is supposed to be like 15,000 acres.
Okay,
So we have 15, well, it's actually not that far off, I guess. Maybe because you wouldn't have state parkland
can you see the
maybe?
cover of that?
Yeah.
Just to see
Well,
it.
That's old.
I wonder if they're counting roadways in that number.
Yeah.
You guys, excuse me, I left my phone in the car, I'm just gonna grab it just in case.
Yeah,
Okay,
to do that, maybe they're not counting roadways.
It's like
Right of
over counting,
ways.
double counting, yeah, some like double,
No.
things are counted in
It
those
does say
places.
that right here, it does not include town-owned roadways.
This one, this line doesn't.
Right,
But it doesn't include it in
right, so.
the other one.
Right, so it might be included in the town-owned land with the 209 parcels. That's interesting.
So I don't know, I'm just feeling like we should have Missy's point was, what percentage, are we like a little percent, a big percent, so that you would wanna have a total number of acres
County park land
down
in
here,
Newcastle.
something like, so if this is supposed to, can I write on it now? Cause
County
we're,
Yeah,
this is our draft,
these are
right?
drafts, that's correct.
Yeah, I think there's some overlap.
I'm gonna say
We should ask, but I think there are some-
14,975, but it needs to be
There's some places for
validated,
Worcester Land Trust of us, there's
You
some
know?
places, like maybe
because that's what this said.
near Kitchewan. I know there's like almost like a T-town property there's some intersecting
So,
properties.
and then this version just has more of the
County parkland.
parcels
Those are the
delineated.
actual, yeah, that is more of a tax,
Right, so
Lot-
that
lot
one,
feel
this
to
one
it.
is what we would use if we wanted to fill in people's pathways.
Interesting. William, what's that?
Dennis, I have a little question on the county parkland in
Mhm.
Newcastle. So there's, the county owns some land that had been set aside, is that an,
Yeah, it's interesting, because it's not broken down in the legend. Well, state and county parks, so
State
there
and
we go,
county
so we
parks.
can actually see, I guess, where that
Grades.
falls. Interesting. Well, we're just looking at the county-owned space and trying to determine where it is,
Well, it looks like it's along the highway, along the Sawmill Parkway,
right?
right, that one.
Yeah, I mean-
This is the
And also the
Taconic
obviously it got lumped by the legend, but these are the
State and County Parks.
a la non-Newcastle parks. I guess that was kind of the lumping concept.
The other thing we should do is this should tie to that. Right?
Can you specify that again? I'm sorry,
Okay,
Miss
so
Gail, I was
this
looking
legend,
down.
in this legend,
color coded?
yeah, maybe you only have
Oh,
to do one
understood.
legend,
Got it.
either. Also, so in terms of space and visual, so in other words, the pollinator pathways we know is gonna be pink,
Right.
right? Then we have town-owned land is
So we can.
blue, right? Town and, like, just so, you don't have to have two legends.
Okay,
The color can be like another column here,
To
or
collapse this into the legend above.
or make the colors
Right,
here.
or just say.
And then, so it's one legend.
Some consistency
Yeah.
with the color and.
That
yeah.
makes sense, yeah, because right now you look at this and you think you look that.
And where is this one? Where is this one?
Right, no, that
You
makes
know?
sense.
And
That
where
makes
is
a lot
this
of
one?
sense.
This one is that.
Well, we can use this for internal, but then when we have it up,
The
we'll have
official one.
something that is a lot more
Visually-
easy, just the facts.
Yeah.
Right.
Less extraneous information.
And the difference between this one and this one is this one has all the little tax parcels outlined, where this one is just the roads. And I think for our purposes, we probably want this one.
I agree with you. I agree with that.
Only because you see, like, you could say like, oh, my house is here. You could
Exactly.
like color it
It's kind
in.
of fun to
We
see
can
your
give people a
house.
pen. You
Right.
color in your spot,
Right.
you know?
Now, we were talking about having the property owned by people coming up in green if they're on the pollinator pathway.
Well, they just did it as a color this way, so I mean, I don't care what color it is, just so it's distinguished, you know?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Unless you think that there would be a,
It may be that these wound up green because of the parks and
Right,
preserves,
yeah.
so.
But we were just telling people it's gonna show up green on the,
Right,
unless
because
it's a
of the
different
thematic
shade of
connection.
green or something.
I actually kind of, I mean, I think what we said, if we said, you know, it's green and now we say it's pink, I don't think that's gonna
Yeah, they're
really
not gonna
deter
remember.
anybody, but what's nice about the pink is that it's a very distinct
and it shows up, yeah.
versus a lighter shade of green or blue, but
And this,
I
and I know
mean-
we put the schools on them, so is that what the bigger chunks are,
this has gotta be,
right? Cause that's that's not one person's property.
no,
Right, so yeah, Roaring
Is that
Brook is
gravel?
there, so that makes sense.
no, I don't know.
Roaring Brook, Cowden. So
That's
this is the high
high
school.
Really, that's
yeah.
probably really,
Yeah, I didn't put Roaring Brook School on, but
now we can,
we can.
So this includes all of the people who did sign up?
just the 28 so far.
28 so far.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
And I gave
I'm not
Callan
on
the
right list
link
'cause I'm not over here.
to the
Or, yeah.
Google Doc, so he could just pull it when he gets it.
Are we gonna send out another email?
Anytime you want, that link can be on there,
Uh-huh,
and we can put it in anything.
cause I think we should, people didn't sign
Yeah.
up and they were
Yeah.
very
We should be
enthusiastic about
actively,
signing up.
yeah, getting it
Yeah.
out there.
Mhm.
People are away for the summer, you know, people aren't necessarily focusing when we're putting it out.
Just need to remind them, like,
Mhm.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I think we should all be just, anytime we want to just get it out there, you know, not overdo it, but, you know, a couple
Mhm.
times a week, just remind folks and, yeah, and what, have we made a decision about, and again, with maybe the pollinator pathways, steering committee needs to be thinking about this too, but about how public we're gonna be around who's already signed up. In other words,
Could you give me like 2 seconds, I'm just gonna make a copy of that, so I could just.
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay, be right back.
do you mind if we keep talking, or do you want us to wait?
No, you,
Okay.
if you're
Okay.
going over the map, that's perfect, that
Okay.
works, I'll be right back.
Oh, great.
So that's an interesting question, right, cause we can say kind of, we're finding on the west end, we have 10 so far signed up, you know, in other words, ways to incentivize and let folks know that people are on board.
Right, well, I think that having it identified by parcel still provides enough anonymity that it's not revealing
I agree.
personal information type of thing. So I think that people would be comfortable if they sign up for that, to be on the parcel, you're on the map, and careful usage of the map, I think would be perfectly fine.
Right, I'm just thinking in terms of like getting on Facebook tonight, is there anything, what is our sensitivity to, where are we drawing the lines in terms of revealing who's already on there?
I don't think there's only 28 people, honestly.
Right.
I think
I think if
you could say,
sign up
sign
by
up.
the form, you sign
Yeah.
up by the form, but we're not giving people's names.
Right, that's what I'm wondering, in other
We're
words,
only
can we say
showing
we
the
have
map,
10
right.
properties so far on the west end? And in other words, I'm trying to build community and excitement.
I
I just say
I
right
think
now,
with
we have 28.
I think we should just start building numbers
Yeah,
before
just
we
when
even
we get up to
try
like 1,000.
Because I don't think we should even try to make it a
Yeah.
distinction,
Right, and I
like
just
if
wanted
you-
to put that out there to
yeah.
kind of think about, you
That
know, it
makes
is,
sense,
you know,
though.
how do you
Right.
engage folks and what's going
Right,
on.
like I mean, and especially when we start doing the Glacier
Like
thing,
if we
like,
really
right?
start
Like
concentrating
we're
on
gonna say
that.
like, look, you know, hey, you folks along here,
Exactly.
we really need you, you
Right.
know?
The other thing is, we can
That's true.
certainly
Right.
say in any correspondence
Like, look at
that
this poor
you could
person.
speak to your
Where does one over
neighbors
here? Like,
about
that's
joining
my
the
neighbor.
pathway.
Isn't it? Me
Yes,
too. I'm like, and this one, look at this one right over here, who lives on Algonquin.
We're all, I
Look,
don't know, but
look,
we're all a
look.
little lonely.
I'm a little, yeah.
Are you lonely too?
At least I put the high school on there, cause that's
Yeah.
a big splash.
That is,
I'll
yeah.
put Roaring Brook on too.
I have to work on my neighbors.
Yeah.
Just, cause I know a lot of them don't use chemicals,
But I
don't
think
know,
that's
so.
it's a good start.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
start.
great to see it like this.
It is, it's cool, right?
Yeah.
Where do
That's
I
great.
live?
And wait, actually, I have to sign up on it. I realize whatever I'm on, I'm not on this, so I will
Didn't
I
we
will
put
be
you
the
on?
first
You might have put
response
you
to
on
the
already.
email.
Yeah, go on the form, on the website's the form, we could send out
Okay.
another thing, sign up. The button's working now, we think, right? It's
Yeah,
working
it
this
seems
year?
to work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So the idea is for Community Day, we're going to have this map
That's it.
with where people can put the thumbtacks type of thing, where they can go up and they can find themselves and they can sign up on that.
Oh, thank you.
Great.
But we
Well,
should
what
actually
happened
have
is
it.
Callan is, from the form, he can look up the person's address and do his magic on the
But-
GIS system.
You know what we should probably do at Community Days,
Yeah.
if somebody has a tablet or something where they could just sign up right there, click the
Oh,
button
you know
and
what?
put the form in right there, instead of, I mean, you could do the map
both. We
visual
could do
thing,
that.
but that would at least give the data right there too.
Right, that's a great idea.
So let's
Okay.
make a
Oh, so
note of.
he has it so that we can interface, we can just enter the form and it goes on the map automatically?
No,
Well, he
it's a
has to-
step.
It's an extra step.
It's an extra step.
It makes an Excel spreadsheet basically.
Okay.
And then Callan can sit there
He
there
enters from the
And
and
enter
spreadsheet.
enters
it
it
in.
from the spreadsheet.
Like,
But yeah, if there's a tablet that, if we can get, service,
Yeah.
just do it that way.
Right, in the moment.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's a good idea.
Sign up right there while you're, strike while the iron's hot, right? Right at the booth. I like that, that's good, okay.
Great.
that is the happiest water bottle I have
Yeah.
seen. That totally puts a smile on my face. That is
It was
great.
one of my daughter's
Daughters.
many that I colored
Yeah, I
in.
know. How many do we all have now, right?
I don't know, but
You
when
can't
they
even
hit the
store
floor,
it.
they resonate throughout the house, boy.
Yeah, and they hit the floor all the time, tumbling everywhere.
Okay, well,
Alright, so that's good, so we're,
that is awesome.
Progress, right?
Wonderful.
That's great.
Okay, I brought all these colors, I expected, I don't know, some sort of spirograph to go.
You are the father of daughters, yes.
Yeah,
so we prefer the one with the,
right, I got that, tax
and we-
parcels included.
and we wanna combine the two legends.
Single legend to combine / incorporate color.
color,
And you wanna try to figure out
The
how
total.
this number,
And then the
right,
Yeah.
percentages or
Not,
Yeah.
not even just
percentages,
visually,
just
you know,
visual.
so like a 14,000 acres,
right,
privately owned vacant land is over 14,000 acres, like, is that,
It says
it's not is it privately owned
just so we.
vacant land? So is that like my backyard, like kind of thing, like
Well, it's saying
my house is-
Newcastle's only 15,000 acres big.
right,
Right.
right, so I
but this says over 14,000,
Right.
is that
So
because
this
like
is
your,
maybe it's a typo.
Yeah, I think there's something.
either that
yeah.
or
or is it like your house is on your,
yeah,
Right,
just
we
to
need to
see
look at how
how
it
these
was
numbers
defined.
correlate, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's quote unquote your backyard, that wouldn't be vacant, you own that lot.
so that's not
Right.
considered
Lot,
vacant,
sheet.
so that's not
et cetera, et
considered
cetera.
vacant then?
Right, right.
So that seems like, right.
Well, it might involve the actual, the way that the data that he pulls from could be everything from impervious structures on the property to that versus just what reads as unimproved, like your
I don't
backyard type
know,
of stuff.
right,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
I mean, those two
We'll
numbers,
ask him.
so you understand what the question is,
Yeah, they
Phyllis, right?
probably have all sorts of categories
Yeah.
for land.
Probably, yeah. That's
I just feel like it would be, and the purpose of the question is, you know, if we could say, I mean, hopefully we'll get up to a bigger number on the pollinator pathways, and this one will be, you know, like, well, if we could get half of the properties in Newcastle, you know, 50% of the acreage is on the pathway of some sort, you know, it would be helpful to know, like, what we're dealing with. So if,
Before Community Day, we can go talk to merchants. Other towns have actually gone with the merchants, and when they have had, they put plants out,
Oh.
native plants out in the front area.
Like, think about the
We
Kittle
could go-
House would be a really interesting
yeah,
place to
we
start.
could do the chamber, the chamber is very
To
open
hit
to
them,
stuff.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true, like,
they need
visit
some
them,
good
go to a
publicity,
meeting,
yeah.
yeah.
something positive
Yeah.
and happy, yeah.
Yeah, there's Tropical Friends, there's, okay, I'm just looking to see,
Mhm.
cause I just see the comment.
Is this a cemetery?
Yeah, that's gotta be,
The wagon road maybe?
that's Wagon
Oh,
Road.
that's
No,
Wagon.
no,
No?
yes,
The
yes, that's
cemetery.
Wagon Road, that's Wagon Road. Cemetery's over here. Is that right? No, I don't know what this is, sorry. But we don't, I don't,
Yeah.
we don't, I don't wanna
Okay.
get in the weeds in this now.
So,
Maybe in the future.
do you wanna go through your agenda?
This is number one, you guys just went through number one.
Okay, alright, well, that's
Okay.
good.
You know,
That's
there's something
easy.
about maps, they're just so much fun.
Yeah, they are fun to look at. There's a good book about this guy who loves maps. I can't remember the name of it. It was, I listened to it on audiobook, it was very engaging.
So
Like
if
really
this,
map guy.
Oh yeah, this is wagon.
so if this gets defined better for you
Well,
in terms of,
yeah. Well, what's our total number of acreage, right, in
Right.
Newcastle? So if it's really 14,975,
Right,
open, privately owned vacant land doesn't seem
No, I
like
mean,
it can
it doesn't.
possibly be 14,000.
no, I agree, something doesn't,
And the reason that
based
we
on
wanna
this,
know
yes,
is it would be helpful over time, like you wouldn't necessarily for this wanna do a like a column for percentages, but you
Right.
could kinda do it in your head,
right.
right? So like if, let's say State Park is 1,400 acres of 14,000, you're like, okay,
Mhm.
that's nice to know, it's
State of-
10% right there, right? And then,
It would always be nice to have, you know, a column for a percentage, I think.
Right.
You know, just so we're always knowing what we're dealing with, I
Right.
think just
Right.
is a really
or
nice
even if,
roadmap.
again, like, you know, and even schools, like I know the schools, I mean, we put the schools, I think, on the pollinator pathway, but like, you know, that's
Yeah,
a lot of
and maybe we
space.
could break down, we could have one for the pollinator pathway and have all
Separately.
the percentages,
Right, that would
residents
too.
and parks
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that'll
Just so
be
you
nice
know.
too, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That's great, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you for
very
telling.
awesome.
Thank you, this is wonderful.
Thank you.
We're making progress.
Okay. Okay, okay.
And maybe these gray things, the state and county parks, are they marked what they are, like what,
It's like, well, this is the Sawmill Park.
This is
right,
right
so what is
away.
this,
On
what's
it,
this
right
one?
away.
I don't know what that one is. This is the Campfire
Like,
Club.
let's see this big,
Yeah,
what's
That's
this
the
big,
Campfire
what is
Club
that,
here.
if it's a state park, and what's this big one? And this one, don't you think?
Yeah, it'd be
one of
nice
these
to
is
know.
like the county trailway, I think, just from going to a
Oh,
property.
oh, okay,
One is, now, I forgot exactly where, isn't this, doesn't T-Town like have a little bit of a blip that kinda, I
I know they
remember
connect to
somewhere
Kitchener.
around here, just a
Oh.
little
Yeah,
spot,
I
from
think
what I
they-
remember
maybe
their
up there.
borders.
Somewhere.
but maybe
West
that, those
End.
could be, I think that they should be, these big giant ones should be
Okay.
marked.
That makes
are
it,
like,
yeah,
right?
cause
I
people
mean,
will say,
what
what
is
is
that,
that?
what is that?
Right, that's a good point, that would be nice to see.
Okay,
And you know, I
Can
don't
we-
want to throw a little red herring in here, but I wonder, in light of the color decision making, the parks definitely feel like they should be green, but I almost wonder if the pollinator pathway should be yellow, like pollen is yellow, you know, something,
Mhm.
if it can't be green, which we think of as nature, could it be yellow? I mean, I love the pink as it
Sure.
stands out, but I just wonder if there should be some other
Well,
thematic,
Pink is the breast cancer color, I don't know if, you know,
that's true, that's a
that
good point,
is,
that's true, many people think of it that way.
yeah.
I mean,
So
if
you
it
want
was
it like
yellow,
pattern, like a
could it
swallowtail
be
or
stand
something,
out,
or
like would the yellow stand out enough, what do you think?
Yeah, yellow
Yeah,
would be
that's fine.
dragonfly?
I mean, the
algorithm?
logo, the current logo
Something
is
like
that like
Lavender.
purple
Mm.
color, so that's the other option. The logo
Oh, that's
is all
true, too.
lavenderish,
Right,
if you go with
Mm.
that
right, with the
theme.
butterfly.
But
I don't
I don't have a strong feeling about the color, just as long as it's, like you said, stands out. Yellow is fine.
I'm just trying to think thematically connecting, if there is, you know.
Right, so like you were saying, like large, so like if that doesn't get ID'd or doesn't have like a call out box, I mean,
It's
you
probably
know,
fine.
that would, right, that's kinda, then it starts to get,
Too busy.
right.
But at least these big
But
ones.
the big ones
Cause
are-
it does make you ask the question, like,
You're gonna wonder
because
what
they're right
it
on
is.
the back of whatever these two little parks are, which I can't even read.
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam and,
Oh, God, it's a
I can't
Eye
read it.
test, yeah.
This little guy here, like what these little parks are.
It just says
And
green
then what's
space.
You know, so,
Way West End.
Even, is it getting too much to go even into what the blue ones are?
town
Not
owned
really.
properties.
So these are the different,
If we can mark them, I mean, it's such a nice
If we
education for
could mark
folks to
them, I
walk up
think
and
it's
see.
great, yeah.
You know, and if we don't have it marked, then people will just be curious and we won't be able to answer, which
well,
would
the
be a bummer.
blues could get busy, cause a lot of them are very small. So, you know, I understand with the blue, I just think really the state and county,
Mhm,
would probably
Those-
clarify a lot.
Yeah, I think those big
Okay.
chunks are probably
Okay.
worth,
Yeah. It's
That
very
sounds
interesting, like right around
Yeah.
Swamp and stuff, so there's probably a history with each one that's different, I
Yeah.
think, but some of them are tiny parcels.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
alright, Dennis, this was awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you and thank
you,
Helen.
Kellen.
Thank
Yeah.
Helen,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can't believe they could print that off,
Isn't that
that's
amazing?
really cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's really,
We have a town-owned park in our neighborhood. It's a swamp that used to not be a swamp, but they took out all of the fill to send to the 1962 World's Fair. So it turned into a swamp, which is fine,
Yeah.
but they call it a park, and it's like, it's filled with invasives and you know, it's
So
just,
it's waiting to
town-
become a park.
yeah, well, people in the neighborhood just live out of it. They don't have a sign up or anything.
And it's owned by the town, so there's
Yeah, it's right
potential
here
there to turn it
on,
into a
Daily
pollinator
Cross.
space.
Yeah. Oh, there's all kinds of things in there. I mean,
Like, what do you mean, like old cars kind of thing?
no, creatures.
Oh,
They're-
creatures, oh, okay.
Muskrats and
Okay,
snakes.
oh,
Well,
okay,
we don't want to
okay.
destroy, we don't want to destroy their habitat.
No, it's nice, but it's like kind of funny when you think of a town park. So
Oh,
it's
right.
like,
right,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not what
Oh,
you think of
no,
when
you
you think
can't
of a
go in
town
there.
park. Right.
Unless you have like hip, the hip
Oh,
waders.
hip wader, yeah.
Then, you might find something, but there's ducks and,
No.
what
And
do you
also
call it,
too, I
blue
mean,
herons?
if it's in your neighborhood, the other value, or really function of wetlands is, obviously there's a retention issue and, water and toxics and et cetera, all the benefits that they have. Even if it's not ecological, it could be, yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool. We gotta get Prine on there too,
Oh, yeah.
cause that's the Woodmill Road folks,
Oh, yeah,
So
the
if
little
we get
neighborhood,
Prine, yeah. I could ask Ann about that, or if you wanna ask Ann, somebody should ask Ann, I'm sure it's
Okay.
fine.
Well, yeah, and the same thing with the other Sawmill River Audubon properties off of Pine Cliff Sanctuary.
We should get all of
that
them on there.
They clearly
Yeah.
don't use any
What is the name of the woman who's connected with the Pollinator Pathways group? She came to a couple of meetings. She works
Oh,
with Sawmill.
Frances,
Okay, I'll reach out.
Frances, and I don't remember her
It's
last name,
nice
but I
here.
can.
There's a few green spaces that have two different colors of green.
The dark green and the light green.
Yeah.
So it's town,
Yeah, I don't know what that is either, I noticed that too, just right here particularly.
Yeah, and then over here too, it says green
it
space
jointly
and it's
owned?
like, well,
State.
Could you pick any color, just circle, like where you think the greens are different, cause I could point that out, cause I'm not gonna necessarily rely on my
which
What
one's a
about
little
that
bit,
map?
my
It's
eyes
like
to
here.
do it, yeah.
and over here.
Okay, that's what you're saying,
There
okay.
might be others, I don't know, those are the two.
No, but
things.
those are good examples, so,
actually,
Yeah.
okay,
The Sawmill River Audubon's might be like a work day to.
okay, thank you.
They're doing a work day.
Oh, no, right, I know,
Oh.
but to tie that in with Pollinator Pathway, we've had to open that up to volunteers to increase the number of people that.
you know what else was cool on this? Like, what are these big
That's coming
giant
up
chunks
in a soon,
of
Oh, so it's coming up in August still?
parcels?
I think so. Are you talking about the Master Gardener?
Just blank.
I know, but like, so they're not, you guys,
I didn't realize that we Master Gardener.
A Master Naturalist, Master Gardener. I'm sorry.
well, they
go
might
ahead.
be a school.
I mean, you know what they're not, I guess, that's.
Yeah, they're not that,
That's kinda right.
Just curious though, like,
And this one is, even though there's like three of them here, but they're marked separately, they're like cordoned off.
yeah, like maybe one of those is that IBM space?
Well, those are
I'm
different,
thinking big.
I mean, those are all, like, if you were to look at from a tax
Yeah.
map perspective, that's why they're all blocked
Right,
like that.
no,
Yeah.
so this giant thing is one tax thing.
Right.
So I'm just curious, what is so big that we have in our community? Just out of curiosity, really. Right, like look, these, cause can't see it, you don't notice it on
That's
this
a really
map.
good question, these big
Big,
parcels.
big, big,
Yeah.
big, big, big,
Mhm.
big, like they could be
Yeah.
the school, right, we could have it, cause that's Greeley, cause we put Greeley on. Maybe one of these is Roaring Brook, one of these is Grafflin.
So this is that whole area, like.
This is,
How did
Reader's
this-
Digest.
Is that Chapel
Digest.
Crossing, Reader's Digest?
I'm
Mhm.
just gonna send this to you.
So that begs the
Interesting.
question, are they commercial properties? I mean,
Right, I
it's
was over
interesting
here
to think
today, it was
about what they are.
134, coming back on Croton Dam, isn't,
IBM.
by the spring, there's a big golf course too, that's over there as well. So I just,
Yeah, maybe, just curious, yeah.
before you get on the spring by where you can make the left to head towards T-Town, that's, that is 134, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of where I was,
Yeah,
okay.
That would be worth asking him, if it doesn't fit because it looks too messy, even just to give us a list of, we could call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then have a separate key for what those are, if it doesn't fit in the spaces.
Sugar Road.
Just because if we're
So what is
wondering,
that?
I'm sure other people will also wonder.
Oh, like what's the big white space?
Yeah, the big white spaces, there are so many of them,
Okay.
and they're probably not.
Oh,
maybe
yeah,
they
that's
could
now
be
they're
properties,
trying to
but-
sell that property, like the
clarify.
$100 million
That
or
would be really
100
helpful.
acres or
Yeah,
something.
for 128,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I
That's
send
probably
this
what
to
that
you, I
is.
should send this to everybody in Pollinator. Anyway, but we can bring this,
I know, we
actually,
keep,
then
yeah,
can we,
there's
can
keep
we-
moving ahead.
It's not critical to what we're doing,
Pollinator
but
pathways take these maps for the next meeting we're about to have? Or do you need to have them back
Take this
in-house?
one,
Or
maybe,
well, can
and
we?
just leave
I'm
one,
asking.
so he can make
Marked up.
changes.
Well, if this is the one you're gonna go with, then you can take this one if you want.
Are these identical or they're
No.
slightly
No,
different?
that's what the lines
Oh, right,
are
these
for
are the-
this,
this
that's
is
where
what we're
that
No, we should just
changes
show
the
the other
base map.
people on the steering committee,
Yeah,
we could
just
show
to
them
see.
what
When is the meeting? I'm sorry, 'cause
we
I-
don't have a
Next
meeting
week,
date.
we're choosing between 2 dates, we're still waiting to hear back from a couple of folks.
Okay,
We could always pick
well,
it up from you right before the meeting.
I
Oh,
could,
yeah, we don't need to,
You
yeah,
know,
we,
because then
whatever's
maybe it would
easy
be
for
up to
you.
you, I'll tell you the possible
right,
dates
I could actually
right
make a
now.
copy and just give it to
Okay.
you.
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
that would
We
work,
don't wanna
yeah.
waste space.
Yeah, and we'll, by the time we have the meeting, you might have an updated version, I can quickly look at tell you the dates, the possible dates.
Okay. Alright, no, I mean, if that's, I mean, you're around, right? We just need a
I am.
copy, it's not easy
Yep.
to, it's easy to make
Yeah,
one?
my family got to Maine today, I am here.
Alright, no, okay.
Okay.
So we're looking at, just so you know,
Mm-hmm.
the 8th and the 14th, it's either the 8th or the
It's
14th.
Thursday or next week,
Thursday or next week, yeah.
yeah, okay.
So we'll let you know, we'll let you know like a day before,
Okay.
is that enough lead time?
Yeah, and,
Okay.
I mean, do you want somebody just to come by and pick up a copy? I mean,
Exactly.
that, it
Just-
would
Yeah, all
be
you
done,
wanna do is
yeah.
just like to show people.
Yeah,
Just
that's
to show
fine,
them what
yeah.
we're thinking.
It doesn't have to be
Okay.
perfect, just the in-progress version,
Sure,
you know?
okay,
Alright,
Thank you.
awesome.
alright, yeah, just, it'd be better, which is good, cause some of this is fresh in my head and Kellen's in tomorrow and
Yep,
it's
so
like
it's
the
better
data
to,
dump, yeah,
got it.
so,
Great,
okay,
Thank you.
and I'm sure people there aren't gonna be analyzing it to the extent that we
No.
are, so
No.
it's
No,
like
it's
maybe
just
it's
like
like,
Visual statement.
yeah.
no, and I know from, you know, sometimes when you develop legends and then there's numbers and some things are double counted and so people are accumulating and they're like, why is it more? And it's like, well, it's not
Yes.
just a singular.
And you're right, it's better not to put it in,
procedure,
right?
right? Well, it's not logarithm or anything like that, but just some things don't
right,
right
and so
fit.
they fit into 2 categories and you
Yep.
have more than 100%, you know, so.
Yeah,
So,
alright, cool.
so I
Thank you.
didn't wanna stop the momentum with respect to number 2 and Dr. Talaman because it was almost like kinda happened organically, like that's why I didn't respond right away, cause it went from, you know, oh, we're getting other parties potentially that wanna come, so therefore they're willing to contribute, and then your email came out just about the time where I'm like talking to Steve about
Yeah.
the same subject matter, saying, I'm new to this, what is like the bang for your buck
Right.
type of approach that, you know, Conservation Board needs to consider.
That's, yeah,
And-
that was my
and
point.
that
basically,
kinda
yeah.
was it, like him saying that, you know, obviously these goals are, you know, kind of what you have to, you know, sort of like ground yourself to, and that depending on, you know, someone's specialty expertise and how many of these you can hit, and if a lot of resources are tied up into that, then there's not, you know, much for other things, where does that like sort of like all leave you? So, having said that, just to give you an idea, it just happened on Friday that I had to submit to Sabrina sort of like a dual budget, my own budget for 2020, like what courses I have to take and, you know, things like that. And then I was discussing with her what, you know, would be reasonable, what should I put in for speakers? I didn't even talk about that, I just wanted like an
Just a
idea
general,
fresh
yeah,
to see
that's
what
the
she
thing,
said.
yeah.
And we sort of settled on a number, I put in $800 for next year, she said that could be rejected, that could be accepted, it doesn't mean it's gold, but it was just another voice who obviously is my leadership and has been here longer than I have, that I just wanted to hear what that number would be.
Right.
You know, so that's just to give you an idea of sort of, I guess, the context of that. So, to your efforts, I would say the more that you could sort of offset that, then it puts me sort of in a better position to
Right.
sort of say, well, this is what he could accomplish, and if it's, you know, only a goal or two, the less that you have to contribute to that, and oh, by the way, this is the audience that he's going to have, and these are the other contributions that were made, et cetera, so, so you're all going
It's a
along the
piece
right
of the
path.
pie.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
there's no magic bullet, that's the point, so.
And for me.
So I wasn't being rude by not
No,
no,
responding,
no,
I was just trying to sort of
Right.
process it,
Understand,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, me too, cause I don't know what other town board budgets are, but it just, and I think he's worth it, for sure, but again, it's kind of that
So that's budget for
bank
speaker,
or just for speaker
just for
would,
speaker, the
Right.
800.
or that's not
Right.
whole budget, that's just speaker.
Some of the other things that you are looking to do, because that was the other question I had, so as not to double dip.
Right.
That sort of comes out of the Glacier fund, some of the other things that we're doing, so that doesn't really come out, that's like the tree bank and then the sub to the tree bank, so that's why like I didn't put anything in there for invasive removal plan or something like that, because that's coming from that, so it would have been like a double dip.
But I'm
But
so
the-
glad,
But the Glacier would be separate from a conservation board fund.
Right,
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
and that's why I couldn't put it into the conservation board fund, because it's already part of the Glacier fund, that's
What
kind of
is
how it was
already-
explained to me.
What's already part of the
Any,
Glacier fund?
any of these sort of capital things that we're promoting or trying to do with Glacier, so for example.
Oh,
Think
oh,
about
okay,
that. Yeah, yeah.
oh,
Yeah, that's what I
okay.
meant.
I beg your pardon, I thought, when you said the Glacier, I thought, okay. Cause those, yeah, so the Glacier fund is really to take care of Glacier, but
Yes.
we're looking for the conservation board to have its own funding. And we can't draw as a conservation board, just to be clear, we cannot draw on Glacier or Tree Bank for conservation board.
Unless it relates to Glacier.
Right.
Oh, okay,
That's correct.
this is what
Yes.
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so for example, not to
Okay.
jump ahead, but I will,
Yeah,
because
no,
I
go
think it's
ahead.
relevant that, sort of, hold on, and I printed everything. So in looking at this, for the first time today, so
Right.
something like that is specific to Glacier. So if that's we'll vote later, but if that's approved, then when this, Pennington grade gets paid, it's going to be out of the Glacier
Glacier,
fund. And
yeah,
that-
he
so
finally
that's how
submitted.
that works,
Oh,
yep.
that's great.
So, that helps.
But
And the tree planting of the 50 trees?
Yeah, that's
yeah,
gonna
that's-
come out of that as well.
The
Right,
Glacier,
Glacier,
right,
yeah.
that's right, that's coming, and
because
those
it
are
will be
coming
planted at Glacier,
soon, right?
October.
Thematically.
That
Okay,
seems
that's
soon.
good.
It is soon.
And so we get to help with placement, we get to help with placement.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind, it's funny because I do have to, go out there and kind of just get an idea as to, what that would
Mm-hmm.
entail, placement, like, from my perspective, which is why I'm open to other perspectives, mine is like just looking at the trees from sort of their, indicator status, like from a wetland perspective, so, I'm not looking to put crab apples where it's damp, you know what I mean, like things like that, so,
Right.
but that's not the end all be all, it's just, for me to just sort of get an idea, and also too, as I was talking to Steve about, that, for ease of work and obviously for function and whatnot, you probably wanna, do some clustering, you're not looking to put like one tree every,
Little groves,
whatever,
maybe.
it's like, right, and it also makes it easier too, when it comes time, for herbivory protection measures and whatnot, to
You
try to
can
like
fence
protect the
it,
group,
yeah.
And for
exactly,
habitat,
instead of
it's a good thing
individuals.
to have,
And
yeah.
yes, that in the end as well, so I have to, cause as Steve's coming in tomorrow, I have to speak with him, cause he's doing something with respect to planting that's gonna require, having to do, the specifications for it and then doing it as an RFP and then having it to go, so I didn't know if we were collective on that effort, cause I didn't know if it was for Glacier or if it was something else, but that's beside the point, I still have to write it and still have to do it, so, but that is, yes.
It would be good to know where that will be, though, just to know where other things are being planted,
Mhm.
once you learn.
Because
Sure.
we should, that's a significant planting on town property, and that's something that we should inform various
Yeah.
groups, one from to the general public through Conservation Board, but also specific to Pollinator Pathway, as a reminder that many trees are really important for pollinators. A lot of people think of summer blooming
Right.
perennials only, but early sources of pollen trees are essential.
Many of them are host plants for the
So
caterpillars.
that
the
could be a
butterflies,
great
right?
educational moment and really a relief to people who are wondering, you know,
And
trees.
really- Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
so that's when the trees are coming, so we don't really have an idea of when they'll be planted, but shortly
Sooner
thereafter.
after.
Before the
Yeah,
first
I mean, it's a
freeze.
whole, you know, that was part of what I was talking to Steve about. He said, you know, the last time that they had trees delivered, you know, there was a
Holding it.
piece of equipment, I think it's at DPW or Parks that was needed to sort of assist, you know, just sort of in the offloading, you know, and then after that, you know, you're gonna keep, you know, the bold and burlap part, you know, damp as best you can, but you don't wanna, you know, have to do that for a week or two, you know, I mean, that's just until you get the opportunity to
Yeah, so if you
plant
can pick
it.
the locations before they even arrive, that would be
Right.
Oh, I'm gonna have to,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, there's no doubt, cause October,
Get 'em
we
in
gotta
the
be
ground.
ready to start digging and put them in and stake them in and,
Then
yep.
we can work on copy ahead of time,
Mhm.
and then when it goes, it can go out at the time.
Yeah, I wonder if we
See
even
where
might
they
wanna
are.
say, invite people to, I mean, this may sound silly, but invite
tree
them to
cut.
come and
Oh,
watch
sure,
them be
of course.
planted.
Yeah.
You know, that could be exciting to kind of bring their kids and be part of this exciting planting, you know, and they could learn too and see, you know, not necessarily they would be instructing them, but to
Right.
get a sense of how it's done, so, an event.
Kids like trucks.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and take a walk
And
around the
dirt
park
big
while you're
truck
there.
day at work, yes.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea to invite, yes.
It's a nice fall time walk too, and you can kind of.
Oh, it'll be beautiful, yeah. That's good.
Okay, October, that is awesome.
So do we still need to then come up with something formal to present to the board asking for a budget on behalf of the conservation board?
Honestly, I had to turn something in on
That's what you
Friday,
submitted
and
Friday.
Oh, so that's what you
I
submitted
did,
on
yeah,
Friday? Oh,
yeah.
I beg your pardon.
And I think
Okay,
it's
then I
later, I think it's
misunderstood.
later this month, or it's,
Okay.
you know, around that time where they,
Okay, I misunderstood. When you said you submitted a budget, I thought it was for like your personal, I didn't realize
right,
it was
I had,
on
I had
behalf
a
of us as
local,
well.
I mean, they were separate, but it was in the same Excel file.
I understand.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you for doing
Dennis, would you be able
that.
to share with us like the
So
components
what's,
of
yeah,
what
yeah,
you
so if we
submitted?
could see,
Just so we're on the same page with you, what.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was, I don't remember all the numbers, but I know there was speakers, then the other was like, just sort of like this general, based on some conversations I'd seen from watching your former meetings, you know, kind of the staples, office supplies, printing, laminating type world. And then,
Like a banner.
right, exactly.
administrative.
Yeah, and then everything else I just kind of backed off of because it was falling under Glacier, so there were things coming out as I, you know, so in the end, that's what I had, so.
And it was 800 for the speakers for
Yeah.
the year, that's for the calendar year of,
Of 2020, yeah.
okay, and then admin, do you remember?
I don't, I'm sorry,
That's
off the
okay,
top
no
of my head, I
worries,
don't, yeah,
curious.
but I remembered that number, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, cool.
So, and again, I mean, some of these things, you know, are not like huge deals in terms of, you know, if something came up where it's like, you know, Dennis, do you think you could print, you know, 25 copies of whatever, it's like, sure, I mean, it's, you know, that's, so it's not all has to be dedicated, everything you ever need to be, but no, we don't have a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
laminator, you know,
Sure,
so
no, no,
yeah,
Right,
of course,
kind of
that
thing,
kind of,
yeah.
I understand.
That's an interesting question for this year, like we want a banner, right? But do we want a banner by Community Day? And is that realistic, and is that like a one-off that we could ask for funding if we found out how much a banner cost for 2019? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or is that
I
something
mean,
we just wanna
we
wait?
made a banner for something at school once, and I think I like got a Groupon and it was like $35 kind of thing. You know, it's
Oh,
like
okay.
100, maybe like definitely under,
Right, cause it's not the banner that goes across the street, it's
No.
just gonna be a banner that will be on a
like
tent.
3 by 6 or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or 2, 3, you know, 3 by.
Relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
basically.
I mean, under
That would
$50
fall under
probably.
the administrative, you wouldn't have an
Right,
issue with that,
yeah.
right.
But for
Okay.
this, if we do it for this year, right, for September's,
Right.
would we not do it
I
this
don't
year,
know.
or would we appeal to you for however much it costs?
I
That's
could
it.
ask, I could
I'm just
request,
wondering,
yeah.
I'm just throwing out the
yeah.
question.
I mean, I'm sure if it's nominal, I'm sure there's always room and things in
Right.
general, right?
Yeah, like petty cash.
I'm sure for something nominal like that,
Right,
you know.
right.
But I'm sure you have money allocated for this year, which I have no idea what that was, and where you are
I don't
with
think
that, I
we
have no
do.
idea.
We don't have, we have
Oh,
zero
no, that's
budget.
right, cause you
Yeah,
guys
we
just
never have
recently
submitted a
got
budget.
Yeah.
that's why, okay,
Yeah, so this is the first asking for a budget, so that's
I got
why
it,
we're
okay.
interested to know if we've got
alright.
$1,000.
The dominoes are starting to fall down my head as
Yeah.
to why all this isn't the way it is, okay, got it. Okay.
So can I just do a quick check-in about the speaker, just because I wanna make sure that, so there is a lot of excitement, like this is why I think bringing him in would be a huge bang for the buck, because he is so on point with so much of what we're doing around environmental issues, and he's on board, you know, he's connected with obviously the native plant piece, the pollinator piece, the healthy yards, I mean, it really is, you know, so when we were initially thinking that it would be really primarily a conservation board speaker, as all this momentum is building, so I just wanna make sure that we're all on the same page, so my sense is now that it's okay for the conservation board to just be one of many partners contributing, cause one of the things we're thinking of doing now is going more regional. So if Bedford 2020, maybe
So if you
one
can
could
bring
go
in some more
or Laston,
Pay-
Arboretum,
Yes,
maybe T-Town, you know, in other words, if we really start thinking about getting him here regionally, and then it's not gonna work out for the 18th of November at the library with the PAC, because they have another event that day. So it almost, I just reached back out to his wife, Doug Tallamy's wife, who's his scheduling person, just to revisit the spring question. Cause even as excited as I was about it being a November date, it did feel like if we're spending all this money to get people excited about planting,
Let's do some.
doing it in November, as opposed to March,
Charging
April,
time,
May,
right.
June, yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
So
And he's got the book.
He has a
coming
book,
out.
right, I mean, the tricky thing is, right off the bat, she had told me that spring is really busy for him,
'Cause
which
there's
is
not
why we
bookstore.
started looking at the fall, well, because he's teaching 2 classes at a
Oh,
time, so he's
okay.
not traveling as much, but I put it out to her, and I even mentioned, without any context, the April 15th date, just as, you know, so I'll let you all know what it comes back with, but it's great to know that we have these other partners on board, and now, as long as we're okay with it not being like a conservation board as the primary sponsor, then I think there are a lot of other roads that we can take to get on board and then donate, as you were suggesting, you know, a piece, whatever piece winds up making sense.
So with the book, with the Friends, I didn't reach out previously to Friends to ask if they would contribute as well, because traditionally, the Friends, which the fundraising arm of the library, when there's a speaker at the library doesn't pay, and usually we don't pay. However, the speakers are on their tour. We have one of the bookstores, or both, Pleasantville and Scattered Books, when it's a big book, who come and they do pre-orders, and then they have a book signing, and so the Friends helps with that. I was thinking that the timing of the book is for spring. He already has 2 titles out, which should be in everybody's home, on everybody's bookshelf type of thing. But if it is tied in with the speaker of that, we can also say that we will, we can have Friends, and it's not my decision, but I can put it forth as an item on the September meeting, that whether we would contribute to as a speaker, and then offer to help with the books for that.
Wow, that
So-
would be wonderful.
So that's a possibility, and it gives more breathing space too, to kind of
It's
figure it out.
nice to have some time.
Right.
It's a tricky, and I'm waiting to hear back from her also on what is the financial commitment to hold a date. In other words, if we wind up thinking that, and there's agreement among everyone sponsoring that there's a date in April or May that works, then what do they need from us to hold that in terms of financial commitment? So again, it's evolving, and I'll keep everyone posted. But that's, that we may be required to give a down payment, so to speak, something along those lines.
But do we wanna use the full, if we do get $800, I think we have to really think about, do we wanna use all of that for
Right,
Doug
that's what I was
Talon?
saying,
Yeah,
whatever
like,
the
or just a
portion
portion
is,
is,
yeah.
and maybe save some for other speakers, I don't know.
Do we
either.
charge a fee for people to see? I mean,
Well,
like
that's a
sell tickets?
possibility, that
And the
has
rea-
happened many times.
And the reason I'm bringing that up is because people pay and they show up.
True.
It's valuable to them,
Yeah,
it's-
that's
they're
true.
investing. Yeah, I mean, I've heard
Register
$10
refreshments.
tickets.
Even if it's like a
Yeah.
$5,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you want that supersized thought, to offer, there will be refreshments there, and, so they're getting something for free when they pay for their ticket type
And
of
a
thing.
mingling opportunity like they did at the J Heritage Center, right, which a bunch of us were there.
Was
when
that
we spoke
paid
there.
in Rye? Did you pay
I don't
fee?
think we paid, but they did have the food.
They had
I mean, they
Mhm.
probably had some investment, but it was a nice
They had
opportunity
Con Ed.
to mingle with Doug Talamy in this very
It was
informal.
Con Ed.
They had Con Ed.
Right,
Did
Con
that
Ed,
as a
right.
sponsor.
So does anybody know anyone in Concord?
No.
That was a very tricky, it was from a conservation perspective, with all due respect to Con Ed, it was a bit of a tricky co-sponsorship from my perspective, because they talked about a lot of their new initiatives around taking down trees. And one of the things
The
they're
lines.
doing is inspire, going onto people's properties and saying, if you want us to give a look, we can look at dangerous trees and dangerous, quote unquote, and take them down.
Right.
Which is a very proactive, it's an interesting, on the one hand, you think, well, if it's truly a dangerous tree, that's a wonderful thing. But if,
Right.
whose interests are they really looking at, again, with all due respect to Con Ed.
Oh, it's true, but I'm actually thinking it from another perspective with Con Ed. Con Ed is about the only, other than town who does the individual towns with the mowing, who literally circles through all of the roads to keep their lines free. And so invasive vines and
I see what you're saying.
Allianas, they
They don't
come-
want them.
They don't want them. And
Yeah.
they have the chipper right behind their chainsaws. They're about the only ones at this point that are gonna be able to take down large enough trees to actually start decreasing a seed bank.
Interesting.
So,
Do you know if they're using effective strategies to take them down?
well, there is
Or they
a
just keep
lot
growing
of
back?
improvement that Con Ed can do, but I would not rule them out as someone who is interested with their own agenda that overlaps to a certain extent with
That's a good
vines and with and with the Allianthus. They're not gonna solve all problems, they
Right,
don't
it's
care
almost
about
like
not
you get the
being,
whole package if you engage them.
but they do care very much about the vines. At this point, I'm going to overextend and say, part of the problem with that is with local, they only make us sweep through every 3 years. And in the meanwhile, I think it's not enough to keep the vines in check. And to kind of make it work, there's a more local, at some level, I don't know, town, I don't know what organization, but grant money maybe to, in those intervening 2.5 years, help with either after they come through, there's a planting, there's continued mowing, there's some management strategy that makes it more worth their while to put out a considerable investment to be taking that down. I think there's something to be negotiated.
You mean as opposed to just leaving the stump, you're saying?
Well, yeah, because what happens is that they come through only once every 3 years, and by the time they come through, the vines are already back up and weighing down their wires and on their poles, and it's a problem.
So conversely, what you're suggesting is they come through this year.
Right.
And right behind them is the town or somebody coming through and saying, okay, big space, let's throw in some
Fill it with native plants.
native plants here.
So they
And
get
we'll
it.
put,
Right, to have-
milkweed here, we'll put that, whatever,
To have a management
right
strategy
behind, so things come in instead.
that there's.
Rather than just waiting for the next 3 years when it starts all over again.
Right, because it,
That's actually
yeah,
strategic. So, that would be interesting, right?
No, I'm listening from.
I'm just thinking because like they recently came to on my street.
Mhm.
And of course they don't take down those like Allianthus that my neighbors have, cause the lines are on my side of the street, not
Right.
their side of the street. And every day I'm pulling out like baby
Oh, I
trees.
know.
I'm like, I'm like, and that's why I asked you about that
Oh, the tree
trick.
of life,
Yeah, the trick.
How to kill a tree of life.
Yeah, and like I might do that and don't tell anybody.
Yes, I don't
Tree
know
of
why
life,
it's
you're
called
not
tree of life.
fertilization,
Not sure
like
why
tree
it was-
of life.
that was the comment.
Oh, we're being recorded.
Right.
For the recorded line. It wasn't me who killed the trees on that street that
Of course not, it
I don't
was purely
live-
hypothetical.
but so that desperate measures don't need to be taken, but yeah, just kind of to keep that in mind.
That's a good
There's-
point, like
there's
it's,
something
it, there,
there.
you
And it
could,
would
you
teach
could
them
use,
too.
you
Yeah.
could use something like
So
that.
they're
It's-
here, they're in Mount Kisco.
Well, they were on my side
No,
a couple months,
as I've
like,
been driving around, they actually took 2 big Norway maples down right here from the home across the way, the Asplund guys. Yeah,
So we can go on
by
the website.
Yeshiva Farm when I was driving to go look at trees.
Yeah, Asplund
Oh,
was
yeah,
the
all
vendor.
along that road, some of it was not quite Newcastle, and then it was Welcome to Newcastle when
No.
you get over there.
yeah,
It was like, and to their credit, they were loading logs. So, I mean, when I saw, like, I go, that's gonna be used for logging, they're not shredding that, you know,
Right,
they had like
right.
5, 6 at a time, and I'm like, okay, at least they were smart about this, you know what I mean, and not just chipping everything, so, but,
What I'm wondering, is it possible for Con Ed to give us a ledger of the trees they take down? Cause it's always been kind of a mystery, what trees they're taking, what their rationale is.
you know something,
I don't know.
I've only, to this point, had to sign one approval to top a 40-inch diameter white pine. And I signed it right away, I was like, yeah, fine, white pine, softwoods, if you're telling me this is by your power lines and you gotta top it, who am I to tell you not to do it? But that's me in 8 weeks, that's the only one I've received, so.
That Con Ed submitted to you.
Yeah, and again, so I don't know, like, I agree, I have no idea what the mechanism is,
I don't
that,
think they
why I
know.
got that one
Yeah.
and
I
the other,
just-
whatever.
I don't
And I
think
could
they
tell you
keep
that
track.
Steve, I could ask him, but I don't think I'm gonna get it.
It would be a nice thing for them, I mean,
Answer
because
for
I
that
know,
either.
you know, there have been times over the years, I know Pleasantville dealt with this, you know, and other communities, where they really do eviscerate a lot of trees.
Yes.
And they're, you know, it's just on an accountability level, I mean, on the one, and it's this, you know, perennial conversation around safety
Right.
and power outages, and then
Your right of ways
carbon
get,
sequestration, right, and
yeah.
climate change and preserving habitat and all of these questions, it's just an interesting.
That was actually by their high tension wires, so those were not the residential. That was by the substation, which was
Right,
very
I
unfortunate.
see.
And I don't know if it had anything to do with Mount Pleasant not having any sort of tree code, clearing code on their books. But they did clear, but that was the right of way with the high tension wires, not the
Right,
residential.
that's a different type of situation.
Yeah, because
Well,
they're,
how about
It's-
Aspla? Have you tried to call Aspla?
You could try
Aspla?
Well, they
Ask them.
contract out with
Yeah.
Con Ed, but Con Ed's, you know, at the behest of Con Ed, they're acting, right?
Yes,
But it
I
makes
understand,
it
but what I'm
cool.
saying is, if anybody knows the information, I would bet Aspla would know more than Con Ed, because they probably were just going through and saying,
And wouldn't Con
I
Ed
don't
have to
think they would
authorize us to
necessarily
share
not
that?
now.
share it.
This is
Yeah,
once
I don't know if they would share
Ask
it.
one as a
But it
contractor.
would
And
be-
they put a little
to
thing
get
in your
permission
mailbox,
from
we're
Con
coming
Ed,
through.
authorization
Yeah,
to
but-
I
share.
wonder where they are.
And I think we're kind of getting
Yes,
lost in this
yeah.
conversation, we
Yeah, 'cause
we
we
should
should-
move on, but one
Just a
thing I
side
just wanted,
point of concept.
yeah, but that would be interesting is if you spun it like the Prism way, and you're like, look what Con Ed is doing, they're taking out all these Norway maples.
Right.
And that was kind of to your
Yeah.
point, so like there is
What
a
would-
way to partner leverage that,
yeah,
because.
white ash too, which, you know, obviously has its
The-
issues everywhere I go and everybody wants to take one down, it's like.
Don't
again,
take them all down.
I'm not,
Yeah,
no,
actually-
some
Wait
I,
for the
some, no,
lingering
some,
ash.
some I've let them limb what's hanging over there,
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
but the
well,
rest of the
obviously
tree
if
looks
it's
good.
on your
And maybe back
property.
in 2 years, but it looks good
I
now.
just attended a whole workshop on ash, it's funny you say that, but anyway, that's aside.
Okay.
So, okay,
Alright,
good.
should we move
This
through
is
this
good.
though?
Yeah.
Just because
So-
we want to, we should get home.
Sure, the
Yeah.
third item,
I guess.
what came through this week, I was, you know, the Facebook and, you know, okay, so.
Oh, yeah,
The trail conference, so I did read their message, so it looks like sort of what they're willing to do, obviously would be sort of separate from this. So in other words, their focus seems to be maintenance of trails.
Right.
So they're not like looking to go to like vast areas to pull out all your invasives,
Oh,
they're
no.
just looking to keep your 8-foot wide swaths
exactly.
free and clear. That's how I read their message.
So I actually, one of the, on the board is Master Gardener, I just spoke with her today at, in Connecticut, and we were actually, I had just gotten the email, so I was speaking to her about that. So there are different levels that you can kind of join for $50 a year, and then there is whether something has been signed as like a memo, like a memorandum or something, a different category of that. But they're just a volunteer organization, they put you on the rotation, they offer workshops for town employees, for volunteer
That's wonderful.
organizations. What's really nice is that they draw from a large area and they have it down with their volunteers, you know, they have, you know, the gear, the whole thing, they've been doing this for years with that. But there's a, you know, they don't solve all your problems, but great to partner
Yeah,
because.
so the thing that was interesting to me is when I saw that, Ivy posted, you know, she's a member of the board, right, of course, and posted that, hey, look at this great partnership, but it's such an overlap to this committee that I want, well, first of all, we all should be aware of that it's out there, and then like, can we leverage?
Totally, because we can learn
And how?
so much from how they set
Right.
up their days.
And Ivy
trail
didn't
days.
know to contact us or
Yeah.
you know, that's a question too, so like you need to contact her and say like, hi, we're
Right.
like, we wanna be engaged in this because
If
we
you,
like it.
if you said you reached out to someone?
I did
or-
not,
Oh,
I
okay,
actually
I'm
just
sorry.
happened to
thought-
be sitting there and there was nobody coming through the door, we started talking, I said this and she said, I'm part of, she said she was part of the trail, and I said,
Oh.
it's so funny you mentioned that, I pulled up the email. So it was completely spontaneous, and unfortunately she was unable to contact the person who would know what we had signed, because Ivy said the town board had signed something. And even more unfortunate is, she's going to be gone for the next week, I'm going to be gone for the next week, so by that time everything's gonna be resolved. But it's great, but not the solution for that. It still doesn't have, what Pennington is going to do is essential for a 5-year plan, they don't,
And you're
they
like a
don't,
long term.
Yeah,
they
yeah,
don't do that.
Right.
But where they come in is with what they do to how they recruit and manage and organize the volunteers. There's so much we can learn
Could
from
they
that.
come and make a short presentation to us about, you know, kind of an introduction, you know, introducing the conservation board to them to partner and align with them
We
moving
need a
forward?
I think what you could do that, or I think what they do is you're on a rotation, and
Yeah.
they come through, they go to several different sites, and truthfully, Pound Ridge and with the Invasives project, they've been on the radar for a very long time, so you see where they are going, and they go, some places are in the regular rotation type of thing, and it is a very good thing to be in the regular rotation.
That's
I
Ward
think they
Pond Ridge?
Pardon?
Ward Pond Ridge, that, or another?
I think it's
Just
the
the
gorge,
community.
Leanna's Gorge?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Leanna's
yeah.
Gorge. Because I went on the website for that. So I think that because they're all volunteers too, I don't know if they, if that would be necessarily possible, that maybe someone
Or
from
before they
from
come to
Lewisboro.
meet with us at first,
Yeah.
to kind of.
Or just have a point person's name, so when they are coming out, we could go to Glacier, like, I mean, I kinda know what,
Well, what they do is that,
Is that
when,
what-
when you're there, that they would like you to also be recruiting. So
Right.
we'll all be together.
Or
Like-
to plan with
like
it, maybe
pulling
just a
people in.
yeah,
one
just to
contact
have a
before,
person,
yeah.
right, exactly, I agree with you.
So we're like in
And
line.
and I think that Rose would be that person, she's up in Lewisboro.
Okay.
But that's really, it's help, it's,
Yeah,
That's great.
So do you know this person to contact?
I just met her today and
Oh,
I have her
okay.
card, but like I said, she's leaving tomorrow and I leave on Wednesday.
Okay, but like in a couple
mean,
weeks,
yeah,
nothing's gonna
coming
happen
back.
overnight
No,
anyway,
no,
but yeah, if we could just kinda keep that on
Yeah, that's great.
the radar, that it'd be great to just know.
Yeah, so I will.
Or maybe we go on their website, say we wanna volunteer at this preserve,
Right.
and then you'll be on the rotation even.
Yeah.
Cool.
do you wanna do I know this is off the list here, but the ADA thing, you wanna
Yes.
summarize that?
Oh,
Or you want me to
yeah,
summarize
I'd
it?
love to hear that.
I'm not saying anything, you could talk to the town engineer if you would like, I was told that they have all of this figured out, and that obviously I'm coming on very late and didn't work on it, so
Oh, I see.
Bob Cioli will be happy to answer anything that you would want to speak about.
Except that he didn't answer, by the way,
Okay,
right?
So-
No, but Rob Greenstein didn't answer, so I guess from what
What Rob said, he said it was,
he said, that of course, we're gonna be ADA compliant, yes, and there is still room for trees.
yes,
So that's,
that I'll agree with.
okay,
Yeah.
good.
The reason I provided you what I provided you, and that's why I was spoken to, I said, it came to a point in the meeting where people were like, what does that even mean? How would you define that? And when I found those specifications, I thought that graphic was quite helpful
Yes.
in sort of illustrating that.
Yeah.
And I said, I didn't mean that to say that we can't have trees, I didn't mean to say that we can't have it in this spot, I just said that this is sort of the guidelines that you
Yeah.
would go by to dictate
Yeah.
that. And they, because I wasn't involved over the last few years, they were like, this has been extensively discussed, and,
all
you know, and I said, okay,
I
I'm
don't want
sorry.
anyone to be misconstrued,
Yeah.
anything. We want both ADA compliant facilities as well as
Of course,
trees,
yes.
that's all.
And they said that was all in you know, has been discussed and has been the considerations, and that's why they know what trees, where they can put them, and I said, that's great.
That's fine, that's all
I
we
don't know
wanted.
those answers.
Because we
so-
heard a rumor that there was conflict,
Oh,
and we wanted to know if that was
Clarify.
true and clarify, you know. Now, I will say that there is some store out here that has 2 burning bushes in buckets, I don't know why.
They had them last year,
The pizza.
year
yeah, you
before, I
can't-
took a
yeah.
picture.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
they go rogue, they have herbs out, they.
Herbs is okay,
Yeah, they kind of do their own
but
thing with
burning
that.
bush is not okay.
I know, I saw that last year, I
Can we
took a
just give
picture
them
the year
some-
before. Sure,
Shrubs. I have 2 boxwoods, I probably could dig up.
there you go.
Inkberries, put some
inkberries in a container.
Oh, exactly, the bigger
What
ones
is
is
it?
how they get it,
Yeah.
right?
I don't have that.
I don't know.
I have,
They've had them last year too, someone told, they're just overwintering at somebody's house. Seriously, I don't
that's
think they're
even
gonna-
worse.
No, they had, or maybe they're digging them up, I don't know, but I took a picture last year, the year before.
Who is this
The
though?
stress-
A
Pizza
pizzeria.
place,
The pizza place, okay.
pizza station, right on the sidewalk there.
There's just come a
Okay.
flyer, like, these are invasive.
so, I mean, other than that, I tried sort of to,
Yeah.
you know, just go through this list of questions and come up with answers, and I don't know, obviously there's some outstanding items, and if there was anything you wanted to specifically discuss.
I love how, just to give positive feedback, I love how you kind of gave notations under each one
Oh,
that
I
we
know.
could.
Yes, thank
So-
you, this was
Yeah,
a lot,
so great.
we really,
So for
So
the
appreciative.
interns, do you think that we could be going to the volunteer days at the high school for next year?
Well,
Be-
that could be one.
Uh-huh.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because another sort of way to look at it is, when I had started employment here, they already had interns working
Right.
in our office, and I guess the way that had worked out was that they had a targeted project, so in terms of that outfall inspection and mapping, that they did a nice presentation at the end that, you know, police came, we all came, it was great, they really did a nice job, and that is sort of the way that they were able to almost recruit, like, you know that we're gonna get some interns hired, and, you know, who could have like a demonstration of purpose and need, you know, and sort of that type of program, so that was another way to sort of go about it, not, you know, oh, there's an intern, we'll take him or her, and it's like, it has to be a little more thought out than that,
So
I
we
guess.
need to come up with the project and kind of the scope and then find the intern type of situation. You know, we need to,
Right,
Make it draw a description.
yeah.
yeah, and
They
if you-
didn't like that better at Greeley instead of open-ended stuff, because they're looking to
Yeah,
do
no,
something.
cause it would be a purpose, and you know, from the perspective of the interns that had worked here, I mean, you know, they were, you know, working in the field, handheld GPSs, they, you know, had to learn to define what was and was not an outfall according to New York State's, you know, MS4 program, and, you know, as I asked one of them also too, I said, you know, did you enjoy any of the fauna that sometimes you come upon, you know, when you hear croaking this and whatever, you know, inside of a culvert, whatever, and he was cute, he was like, well, I'm okay going to zoos, whatever, I said, that's all right, I said, not everybody's a field person, I get it, you know, I came from that, I know what you're saying, so that was cute, yeah.
And it was a high school level intern?
I think they were both in college, actually.
College. So have
Yeah.
we had high school interns, any history with high school?
I don't know, yeah.
Well, the Park and Recs uses 2 interns, they do watering and mulching. So they supervise and then they kind of have somebody with another person to help out, to be another pair of hands during the summer.
So they're like apprentices and some.
Or they cover vacation, it's probably is what they're.
Are they,
Floaters.
do they get school credit or are they paid any kind of compensation?
I don't know that level
That would
of
be interesting
detail.
to, you know, is it a for credit experience?
I think,
I don't think we have any
those, the
experiences.
interns who did the outfalls, one came in to pick up her check.
So they
That's
do,
a
well, for the
huge
college
upsell.
kids, so maybe
Yeah.
the high school would get some stipend or something. I don't know, just.
I don't think they get credit, cause there's no credit programming,
At high
that would
school.
allow them to.
But they don't have a community service.
No, they don't.
They no
That's
longer
so
have
interesting.
required
They don't.
hours.
They don't.
Nope.
Okay.
They
That's
used
another
to.
issue.
The whole,
Another-
yeah,
Yeah.
this, yeah.
But so potentially a high school student could receive a stipend for their work,
Okay.
potentially, I guess, I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Alright, great.
And,
So no active thing on the gazebo, they're not gonna do that thing for the
yeah,
Holocaust?
these were all Steve that.
And
that
gas
these
station's
are-
gonna be pulled?
Oh, wait,
I
you're going
heard
so fast.
the building,
Just 'cause I'm starting from the bottom.
about that also.
I don't know why, sorry.
Oh, right, that was interesting, the definition of being pulled for number 11. Does that mean it's off the
Stopping.
table?
That was, yeah, no, cause I heard, and those were what Steve was, conversing to me about, and I think Tom, who's the building inspector, was mentioning something about that as well.
So that becomes unlikely.
Yeah, I think honestly, the person, might have other, alternative sites in other towns,
Okay.
type of thing, so.
Wait, so the gazebo was the daffodil project?
Yeah.
I thought that was going ahead.
That was the Holocaust one, I think,
Yeah, the
right?
Holocaust one, yeah. Holocaust daffodil, looks like.
Oh, that was the.
So I thought that just in the town newsletter had talked about the plant list, and so are we thinking about the same thing or no?
Which project is it that?
The Holocaust was the gazebo project, that's not happening, that one.
But it said outstanding items, Holocaust Memorial Plant List.
Yeah, I
So-
didn't,
is the
Steve
gazebo-
was not aware
Oh, I
of
beg your
that,
pardon.
so I have to ask Jill, who,
Oh, we don't
I
sure.
only saw her for 2 minutes today, but she was running out to do something,
Right.
so I just have
Okay.
to get verification on that.
Right, the gas station is by the gazebo, but that was I don't know, expansion or parking for the
Right.
service station.
Right.
And that's the one that's now unlikely.
Yeah, it's possibly like, right,
Which number are you on?
That was
11
the
and
one.
12, 11.
Okay, the gazebo, right, no, okay. So the gazebo was which project? That was the Holocaust project?
That's the one I think of as the Holocaust one.
I thought so too,
And that's
Okay.
not active.
We're not sure,
but, yeah.
I think that's just, we don't
I'll
know
have
yet.
to verify those two are
Thanks.
related, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And then the stream mitigation, we're gonna go descending order from 12.
So Steve is still working on that, it sounds like.
Design
And put out to bid. Oh, the court, okay,
That's interesting that the basketball court came in over bid, so that's on hold.
okay.
I guess they have to do another RFP maybe.
So is there any sense that when things on hold means not this year? Cause they were gonna try to get that done by winter.
Oh, okay.
That was on a fast track, right?
So
So that
on
aligns
hold-
with the stream work, I
Right.
think, right?
So on hold in town time, is that a few weeks or is that?
I remember
I wasn't leaning towards that.
Yeah, I
But
would
you never know.
I just put it, yeah.
Okay.
If it came in over bid, then they might have to do another RFP to get new bids
Oh,
to find
so
one that works.
way
Or maybe
way out.
redetermine the scope or something.
Okay, alright.
These are all good questions, I mean, I'm just
Yeah,
guessing.
no, this is
And then
such great
I
information.
noticed by the duck pond, between the sidewalk and the road,
Yes,
that that I use you as the, or someone went after the knotweed,
Yeah, I saw
and
that.
over
Oh,
in
really?
that area.
okay,
Um,
it was not me,
it was not you.
I'm targeting a button bush at,
Oh, but Buttonbush is so good.
no, but it's, I'm not happy with the button bush at Getney
What did it
Park, this
do?
one particular, it didn't do anything, it's got two ailanthus and celestris growing all
I
around it.
know which one you mean, the
And
one
then it's got one
yeah.
behind it,
I
which is
know.
underneath that maple, which you see is half in flower, cause the shaded part is not, it's like a study. And then the
Interesting.
last one, which is closest to
Is it the
sort of the
duck pond
parking area, has
Yeah,
full
I'll go
sun, and the entire shrub is
Maybe
in
that's
full
the one
flower.
I'm thinking of.
So what do you think it likes? I mean,
So where is this? I'm so curious now.
Getney.
this is
Look
a
at.
Gedney right next to the bench, right, that you can go and
Sit
hang
in
out in a
the,
little pier area there,
Yeah.
like to,
right
with
by the
water.
dock
Yeah.
area.
Wow,
I'm gonna go there with a
interesting.
bag and some clippers and a saw.
So you can
Make that work.
you'll liberate the button.
Oh, can I ask a question about purple loosestrife?
Yes,
Can I just put a bag over it and cut it off? Is that like gonna kill it?
Put it back
You
over
mean-
it.
Well, like so it doesn't like,
oh,
How
to
many
stop the
are
seeds
how
from?
big of a
Yeah.
patch is it?
Flower seeds.
just cut them off.
Just cut it, yeah.
Yeah.
Alright.
I've dug them and it's worked, but it depends how many you have.
I don't know, I see them, well, first of all, on 117, right after you get out of Greeley and going down 117, there's like a whole bunch of them on the right. And then there's some on the saw, I live off the sawmill,
Mm-hmm,
southbound on Croton Avenue.
mm-hmm.
And there's some right before I get out, and every time I get off that, I'm like, I'm gonna pull the car over and get out and put those things.
You should, get out.
I am,
Are we allowed to do that?
well,
I mean, that's an
I
interesting
don't
question.
care,
She's on the record.
You're a rebel with a cause.
I don't care.
I actually,
I think
I will
it's so
defend
low on
you.
the
It's not
list
a-
of things
it's
that are
not a
gonna
park.
be, yeah,
I'll
right.
speak, I'll speak
But those I can
quantitatively, I know the vegetation, that species is not protected.
No,
Well,
no,
right.
Right,
it's
it's
not
considered
protected.
Say that,
invasive in
but-
New York, right?
It's
It's
terrible.
very
So there's
invasive.
a biological control that I don't know how it's doing this far.
I
I know
think
that
it's-
Rhode Island is doing well.
No, I think it's been considered a success pretty much, but I think it's kind of a population thing,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, as it's a
Because
population.
we don't have a lot of them yet.
It doesn't
No, no, no,
spread
I
as
think
much
we
as
had-
others, I mean, that, or at least
No,
that's
I think
what-
it was very much under control, and then the insect population kind of crashed, and then remnants of the loosestrife come back, and then the, you know, that's what I mean by
Insects come back.
population.
Oh, I
So it's
see.
kind
That
of
was your
chasing
population.
I
population.
don't quote me on this is a very broad overview of my understanding.
I mean, I don't view it from doing wetlands work, it's not Phragmites, that's for sure.
Right.
You know, I've
Okay.
never
Yeah.
seen it
Some
at that
are less
level,
invasive
I
than
would
many
agree with
others.
that.
Yeah.
It's certainly
Just they
not
can see
knotweed,
it.
you know,
It's
which
hard to see something.
is not a wetland plant, but for some reason, the minute there's any elevation whatsoever by a floodplain or stuff
They're not
just, you
weeds,
know.
it's
No,
awful.
Yeah.
it's straight sand. It's in
Yeah.
the dunes.
Yeah.
It's
It's
horrible.
everywhere.
It scares,
It's on concrete.
It's frightening, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good.
100% sand. So would have done that? Or like,
At the duck pond, you would
Yeah.
have gotten rid of it? I don't know, I just noticed that too.
I do not know, that's a good question.
Okay.
It was not me, that's all I
Right.
know.
well, to be very quick, because I know that we're running out of time, but so there's an area between the sidewalk and the street that
Right.
had been targeted. It is by a guardrail, so now I am suspecting that it
It's the
is,
state.
if the 120 is owned by the county, I'm suspecting
State.
that it is 120 is state, then it
I
would have
think.
been a state,
Just one of those ormars that
Mowing
went in.
along the edge.
right, which again speaks to the whole idea of a plan for invasives,
Such a
because on
temporary-
the other side of that sidewalk is your grove gallery of everything right there. So, you know,
Was it mowed, wasn't it, looked like it was sprayed to me.
I think
It's
what-
sprayed.
Someone
It's-
sprayed
Yeah,
it?
it's sprayed, it's not
It's
mowed,
sprayed.
it's sprayed.
Really?
Yeah. Okay.
Just saying, I just noticed it too. Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
but it's probably under the state, yeah. I mean, those are coordinations at different government levels that
It's
we
good for
try
us.
to influence, but I don't.
Right, I think as
I'm happy
conservation
to
board
see it gone,
members,
I
it's
just
good
know it's
for us.
coming right back.
I think as conservation board members, it's good for us to know to whatever extent we can when things like that happen, because there are people paying attention to when pesticides are used.
Right.
And so we've gotten confirmation from the town that the town does not use pesticides on any town-owned property.
Right,
But then
right.
people don't necessarily think about those roads that are
And
state
those are under
counties.
this, right?
Right.
And so, but they may come to us and say, I mean, if someone saw that application, they may come to us and say,
I don't think they have to apply, I think state takes over.
right,
I don't know what the law is.
Right, it's an interesting kind of question,
Yeah, but
how
it's an
we
interesting
respond.
question, how would you
Well,
even know
in other
what
words,
the
just
law
for us
is.
to be in the know, I think it's a question
I
of
wonder
just so
if
that
somebody
we can
called, like,
explain to people the distinctions.
Westchester County,
Yeah.
because the
There's
county.
probably a way to find out how
Right.
it all works.
Well, what I was actually thinking is that, you know, yay, you know, it has been addressed. How can we make this a more effective application?
Keep it at bay, kind of
Because,
thing,
you know, if you are going to be using the herbicides, then let's make sure that we're getting as much out of it as we can.
And did they shield it? I mean, there's a lot of, you know, if our town is saying that we are concerned about the use of pesticides, then are we asking anyone who comes in to protect the space around it? I mean, we could actually do a case study around this and have a whole other conversation at another meeting.
Yeah, they're
Because
not
it's just
doing
an
any of that.
interesting question, you know, in terms of what are we doing? To your point is a good one too, you know, in other words, how do we keep it from coming back? And what do we do on a longer
It's
term
the
maintenance?
Department of
But
Transportation.
here at a
bet,
bus,
right.
just philosophically.
And it's all, I mean, at least from my former life, it's licensed applicators and, you know, if you're near wetlands, you're not supposed to do it in windy conditions and you're supposed to say upwind and it's like
Right,
this
but to
whole.
explain publicly
Right.
to say to the public, we are committed, in other words, it's almost like the narrative, we are
Yeah, our
committed,
town is
we
committed.
are not using pesticides, and we have an issue with knotweed. And one of the most effective ways to deal with it is this way, and this is a road that the state owns, and therefore, everyone should know that this happened here, it's a limited situation, in other words, it's just for transparency, and so that people understand
we can still be committed to not using pesticides, but there may be certain instances, and frame that so that people understand. In other words, just thinking
It's the same
about.
with cutting trees underneath the power line. It's
Exactly,
kind of the
it
same
is kind of the
concept.
same
It's,
idea,
you know,
yeah, that's a good
It's
analogy.
utility right of way and,
Right.
you know,
And letting folks
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
what's happening and feeling in the
I
know.
mean, and to be fair, like, I know this is, you guys were talking about it before, but, you know, we've done work in my former life, sort of, in these environmental management and construction plans that are required under, was it NYSERDA? I believe so. And that, you know, they're allowed to maintain, like you said, their transmission right of ways,
Yep.
but they still follow the rules of Indiana bat season, and they're not hacking the trees, you know, during, you know, maternal roosts. So,
Right.
to their credit, you know, that doesn't mean the tree's not gonna come down, but they do have to adhere to, you know, there was another project where they had to improve, you know, the roadways. We required, you know, where we recommended, and it was required by the permit, needed a bog turtle inspector out there for the wetlands that were potential bog turtle habitat. Timber rattlesnake, because it was in Rockland County, so you needed somebody to look out for that. So, you know, again, it doesn't mean that you can't use those as project killers,
Right.
but they're
yeah.
doing all they can to sort of mitigate in place
And
as
to
they have to.
comply with
but-
those
yes,
And they did it
correct.
before it flowered, so they're not killing the bees.
Right,
Right,
not
So
going during
they
frog.
did the right timing
laying
for the
season.
first application, but I'm just not sure if they're going
Public
to be
Service
doing
Commission, wasn't necessarily,
Public-
sorry.
oh.
the repeated
That's
application.
encouraging
Okay,
to hear
so
though,
did you-
you know,
Yeah,
people are thinking about these things, it's good.
I'm willing to
You
go
know,
on
they-
and pick out
they have
anything
to
that's
behave.
emerging.
They have to behave.
Yeah, they have to get us power, but they have to behave in doing it, they definitely have to.
Yeah, they did it at the right time, yeah. Okay.
I never heard anything back from that woman who lived on Brandon, by the way. She said she was gonna come to town and look
That
at
was the traffic triangle person?
yeah, to look at the
Read the traffic jam.
history. Remember somebody thought it might have been
right.
Who owns the road?
right, and that section who planted it and what the plan was. So, but she never reposted to my knowledge, and she said hasn't said anything else. So it was probably like theirs. So stop complaining.
There was a post about it, just within like the last 48 hours.
Oh, there was? That she
Yeah,
figured it out?
she thanked
Oh.
some, maybe DPW for dealing with that, and then someone else chimed in and said, could we replace those with inkberry?
Oh,
And then I think she
didn't see
said
that.
back, you know, that they were planted quite some time ago, and, you know, I can't remember what other detail, but,
so
so it's an active thread right now.
Oh, is it right now? I missed that then.
I
Okay.
think it's on Chevron Moms, I think.
Okay.
Well, that's great.
I haven't been on there for so long. Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Cause I would thought that I might be on the string and get
So we did 8 and we did 7. A limit no mow test site, Gedney wetland.
Right, so that's the plant list sort of at the end, which I
Yeah,
forgot to
thank
add,
you.
add in a rush. So this is the area in question. I did my
Oh,
best
right.
artwork to sort of
Yeah, I've been
pace
noticing
off
that.
and do that.
Yeah.
So this is a wetland area for sure. In fact, I think it's funny that when I drove by today, just to take a look, obviously some of the tire ruts that are here, which is where they decide to stop mowing. And I'm not convinced this is the rain. I mean, I think the hydrology is near the surface, the subsurface hydrology. Like if I dug my
Right,
pit,
It's so wet, that
sample
area,
pit,
all
you know,
year.
I mean, the soils are saturated to the surface, but the actual, like, you know, groundwater is
Right
fairly
there.
close there as well. So my thinking was, you know, if you're looking to sort of advance an agenda, a rationale, an argument as to, you know, what is the benefit or what will we get out of, or what is the goal of an unmowed area? And so I just said, well, we have one, let me just do an inventory list and just out of curiosity, see what's in there and what we have. And, you know, obviously a lot of these, you know, some of these species, I don't notice them, you know, obviously in the upland areas, but, you know, the rest of the area that is mowed, I saw Birdfoot trefoil. This heel-all seems to be more prevalent in the upland than in spots of the wetland. But the point being in that, you know, it helps to sort of just develop some sort of approach with respect to, you know, here's like a good test site, but I know that there's obviously other parks, you know, and maybe other areas that you're looking to think about, you know, could we expand that? And if, you know, if there was a way that you know, like here for some reason it seems to be convenient and work because there's a nice path, you know, it doesn't get in anybody's way, so, you know, nobody's concerned from that perspective, and gee, that's the nice thing about wetlands, I guess they're a pain in the butt to mow if you wanted to, because your equipment's just sinking in, so you kinda, you know, you were able to take advantage sort of a situation where, you know, it became like-minded. I'm not saying, you know, that was necessarily out of sort of avocation, it just became, for whatever reason, yeah, we agree with you, sounds great, we don't wanna mow it, you know, it's like, just leave it like that, so that's something that, as I, hopefully, cause obviously I have to get to Glacier and do what I have to do for those trees, but like as I sort of venture out to other parks and other areas, like sort of, this is like my thinking, and, you know, on a nice Friday, you know, I had no worry standing out there for an hour, like pacing all this off and just doing my inventories and figuring out, and I still don't know what species of beggar's ticks it is, but that's okay.
Those are
So, you know, I mean, I'm not getting rid of this, and, you know, that's just sort of like what I'm compiling, and then, you know, if there's some way that we could, you know, sort of come up with a,
Can I
some
ask,
sort of
is
plan.
it it's thrilling that you're doing this. Is it possible to put a sign there, almost like a demonstration for residents to see, like, this is a test case of
Well,
wanting to let
what's
them know.
funny is that, you know, right, I mean, if you're standing here, you don't get buzzed by a dragonfly, you know what I mean? But like when you're in there, it's like, oh, you guys are around, you know what I mean? It's just, it's kinda, yeah.
It's a habitat.
So it is,
Active
it is.
habitat.
I mean, and honestly, I mean, for what they have there, I'm sure they mow it once a year, once every other year, because there really is no woody species coming up whatsoever. So it's kind of maintained at some herbaceous level, but it's not, you know, at this regular interval of,
I'm just
you know,
thinking of the
multiple times a
educational
month.
value, you know, like putting a
No,
sign up with,
it's a nice little,
say, it's not too much to
It
ask.
is, and with the wetlands, and it's not as heavily invaded as other areas, other towns are able to do on the side of their sidewalk, to have some areas designated as no mow, no blow zones.
right,
Like, our town, we can't do that, we have the invasive, you know what I mean, it's not necessarily sending the right message, and
Oh, sure.
actually, the management is to mow down the stilt grass and the cast of characters type of thing. But in a wetland, we've removed a lot of the invading invasives on that, so
Yeah.
that's more of a.
they seem, for some reason, I mean, you know, if you think about it, like, I mean, they have non-native species wetlands, don't get me wrong, but, you know,
It
like
wasn't.
the Phragmites level plants, it's like, you know, for wetlands, I guess there's tear thumb's a problem, but I haven't really come across that, it's more Jersey, personally anyway. But point is, like in the uplands, it's like, it just seems like the list is, you know, it's just exhaustive to me compared to wetlands in terms of worrying about, you know, if you have this,
It is
it's
exhausting,
here to stay
it's
and it's gonna
exhaustive and
keep coming,
exhausting.
you know, right,
Yeah, right? But have they, this has been going, has this always been, I just noticed this year though, this no-mow area, has it been like that every year?
No idea,
Well,
just
we had
happened
such
to drive by
drought
it.
Until
No,
last
but I've just
fall.
noticed that it's not being mowed this year.
Well, it's been
Do
so
we know if
wet.
that's true?
Do you think that they were having trouble with it?
I don't know, I'm just curious like why this year, cause I noticed it this year in a way I've never noticed it before, and that doesn't mean that it wasn't happening
No.
before.
Right, right.
But I noticed it this year, so I was curious what the, well, I was happy, but also curious what was
Well,
going
now
on.
I'm gonna have to go take the dogs there, cause I have to go check it out.
Me too, instead of driving by. I'll stop this time.
So
Okay,
that is really exciting, thank you.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to look for these too, I'll take my list.
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
This is
I'm not so
great.
sure about the fescue sedge, I'm not, now that my eyes aren't what they used to be, I'm like looking
Yeah.
at those things, I'm just like, I think this is what it is, but, you know,
Yeah, no.
Can I take a picture of this? Are you okay with that?
of course. I can make a copy of whatever you want to do.
Okay, just oh my God.
Yeah, that's certainly not GPS, that's me pacing
Just a
and my
general.
Right.
my attempts, you know.
Yeah. If anyone else wants to see it, but.
Yeah.
Duck pond parks, so for 5, I'm not super clear. Duck
Mhm.
pond project was Steve.
That's what he told me in the end,
So
because I know, I think I had a note about that, and he says, oh yeah, I did that duck pond project, because I know you were talking about it last time.
Right, okay. Okay. so that still becomes part of the training module, okay. We did the budget for the Boy Scout interested in invasive removal. Was this through? Oh, this
was your guy.
this was my person.
Yeah, if we
Oh,
needed
great.
a release form.
Yeah, then I just have to see what, because I guess Steve mentioned the recreation department, had
Procedure
knowledge of them
for-
using them to see what they've done in the
For
past, so,
using-
yeah,
okay.
I haven't, yep.
Okay. Okay, so that's.
This is a lot, I mean, you've done a lot since the
I know.
last time
Thank you
we
so
met.
much, I
This is
know,
great.
this is really amazing.
Oh, this is, and I'm sure Karen would be interested in this too, number 2, in terms of how do we officially comment
Yeah.
open space, that would be interesting to know that someday.
That's the answer, we can comment on open space resources
Yeah.
and projects that impact open space, so we just have to be in on the know of what's being asked for.
Right,
Right, to know what's coming up on the
Right,
agendas.
like, you know, we
Right.
talked about a liaison or someone,
Okay, all right.
yeah, know what's coming up on the agenda, yeah.
So the number 15, we
Right.
have that list of things, are we supposed to reach out to them to get competitive bids for
Well,
Glacier, is that what?
funny you said that, cause I did speak with Sabrina and I'm not sure she fully understood following this. I think for this, she's like, which we will formally, you know,
Discuss.
motion,
Right.
that. At this stage, 600 to sort of do the initial work, the initial, let's say, scope and evaluation, you know, to try to come up with something. She said, that's fine, don't have to worry about that. I said, okay. But I still feel that after you come up with that, right?
Yeah.
Here's, thank you, pay him the 600 and he comes back to, scope of work, next steps and a general recap of the meeting. At that point, that sounds like a more
Yes.
costly, involved project.
Absolutely.
And then at that stage,
These are other people.
this is sort of how it all comes, because what I found interesting about this person is that I just recall from my former life, you know, you do a lot of this for free. You know, that's why as time went on, we kind of started moving away just based on the size of our firm from like more local work, because we would write these long letter proposals that we in essence just laid out your entire project for you.
Right.
And we're like, we know you know, we just knew you took it and just handed it to these other 3 people and said,
Right.
can you do this, what's the
Right.
price?
Right.
Okay, it's less than them, thank you.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly,
I mean, we
of
did it,
course.
it's just, so this, you know, Pennington Gray, you know, obviously the business world is advanced, right, to the point where like, we don't do this stuff for free anymore, you know, we at least want some compensation for 4 hours
Yeah,
to
yeah,
come
sure,
up
yeah,
at
sure.
that point.
Exactly.
And then after that, I think it gets to that you just don't, cause I can't imagine the cost is gonna be potentially like, oh, it's only $800 to do an entire scope of work, and next, like, you know, I think it would,
No,
and as
yeah,
that moves up,
initial.
then it becomes, I
Like
think,
Yep,
initial
got it.
consult.
so at least you have, you know,
A
this
list
other,
of other
other,
people.
exactly, yeah, so,
That's great.
okay.
So, we have a month, we have another meeting next month, right?
Yep, so we'll comment on that.
And we have to get ready for a
Right, so
community day. Has anybody heard from anybody about that yet? Is it too early?
anybody
Oh,
heard
was
about
we
it?
I'm
speaking
sorry,
on the
community
agenda
day
about
tables.
that, like
I
looking
actually
at
just
where
put
the
out a
table
question
is?
to a
Did you put
treasurer,
something
I
about
have
community
not
day
seen
up here?
that, and it usually
Reviewing
should
where
go
the
out at
table
the end
placement
of
was?
July.
Something along those
So I'll
lines?
actually check.
Oh, I think I just
Yeah,
meant
Barbara,
how you were going to
Cardone, who's on
Oh,
Newcastle.
look at
I
this
got
as a
it.
final
She
product.
got
Did you
an
want to laminate
application
it, did you wanna?
because she had asked for
Did we talk about that?
Make it a
last
quilt?
year?
I don't know how to say
Well,
it.
she didn't want to be the
But
contact
that's a
person,
good,
so she filled
did
it
we
out
talk about
as
that
me.
actually?
My home address, I have no
I
idea.
believe
So
an
I,
email
but she
came
filled
from
it out,
this
she
young
sent
lady
it
here
in
that
with the
said they just
money
did
and
the
everything,
easel
so I
last year and
don't.
it worked.
Oh, the
I don't
easel,
know if you
okay.
guys wanted to do
The
that,
easel's
yeah.
good, the map,
Okay.
that's what we did at
Check the
Pollinator
PO
Path.
to see if
Okay.
that
Good.
town was gonna
And yeah, but then we'll
kind
have all
of
the
gift
colors.
it
which
to
will
you,
be
like
fantastic.
that type of thing,
Yeah.
I think you still need to
Yeah,
fill
and
one
in the
out
next
at a
meeting,
location.
it'll be at a stage
Yeah.
where
I hadn't asked Barbara.
there'll be some
I
time
wrote
to
back
deal
to
with,
Barbara
like,
when
if
I
there's
asked
like
if
some
we could all be
tweaking or
together.
whatever, you know,
Before
that could still happen, but I
She's
wanted to
got a
get
lot
more
going
major
on,
stuff
so I'll
now, just to
follow
give
up
them
with
time.
Barbara.
That's
When
great.
is the next one? Community Day is the 14th of
And
September.
lots of Barbaras.
Yes.
Right.
Right,
So when's the
it's
next
that
meeting?
Monday before.
So,
The second,
okay.
September
So-
2nd, or or,
So that's like when, Dennis, there's a misspelling here and
Got it.
we need 3 copies.
Got it.
You know, like
Actually,
that would be able to
Well,
handle
September
that.
I
2nd
have
is Labor.
September 9th, I think it's the 9th.
That's correct.
The 9th
The
is the next,
second-
that's what I have too.
Yeah, Labor Day is as early as it could
Yeah.
be.
So we have 1
pretty much
week,
this
we have until because Community Day is the 14th.
Right.
So we have like 5 solid
Yeah.
weeks
It's
there.
so early this year,
It's really early.
it's brutal.
Okay.
Yeah, that is early.
And what is the 9th is the date for what?
Next meeting.
It would be
Oh,
the
yeah,
next
it is,
meeting.
meeting.
7 o'clock,
So
yes,
the other
okay.
thing is, that we talked about a demonstration garden, just something kind of quick and easy. If we're gonna be talking about something at Glacier for the public when we plant the trees, we can just put in some plantings near the Glacier sign. I have the smooth stem, I have goldenrod, and I have asters.
Which are great that time of year,
I
so.
can just, we can do something there, just even root
Absolutely.
it back, it's just something to put that in so that when people come,
Mhm.
there's a little something nice there.
Yeah.
So I
With a
will,
sign, little signs.
I'm going to have, either I'll do that or I'll have someone will work on that to make that look a little bit cleaned up and a little
Great.
flower or something.
Okay.
Not really a demonstration garden, but it's a little something.
So you can just do that, we don't need permission to do something like that.
Oh, yeah, are we allowed to do that then?
To just plant flowers?
At
I don't
Glacier?
think-
On town property?
Great.
Who's gonna
At
stop me?
Glacier, yeah, I don't think that's
Okay.
an
Native
issue
plants for
you guys
educational
to do that,
purposes from the
If
conservation
you had to
board.
cut a
I mean,
tree,
it's
no,
certainly
I don't
within
think that's a
scope.
problem, like we
What
want
are they
more
gonna
sun
say?
here, I'm cutting this
It's
tree.
making
Within
total
scope.
logical
Refine another
sense.
spot.
It's a positive,
It's like
Yeah.
if Johnny Appleseed, like throwing
And if a loose leaf loses its head in the process,
that-
well then, you know,
loose
that's
leaf
just part of
and
it.
Norway maple and Bernie Bush and Elliot, they're not,
Right.
The thing for killing the lawn mist,
yeah,
when you have a large one, don't cut it right to the ground or you'll be cutting suckers
of
for life.
things, yeah.
Let it cut it high and then it puts its growth in next year, very unattractive at the top, and then kill it at the bottom. Let it already leaf out and put its energy there and then cut it and you have fewer suckers.
There you go.
Nice.
Good tip, very good tip.
Of course, I did it the wrong
Wrong
way
way, yeah,
for
the
the
first
first 10 billion
time.
times.
Live and learn, live and learn.
So just the final formal,
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So motion for the conservation board to hire Pennington Gray to do a landscape proposal for $600. All in favor?
Oh,
Aye.
yes, yay.
No nays?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that is
Yay.
great
Yay.
progress,
Progress,
yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the map, we've got the proposal
Yeah, this
now.
is-
Yeah,
I-
we're making.
I'm
success.
sorry, I didn't, cause this list under 15 is, Steve, okay, I know this guy, okay, that sounds good. You think Evans would do it? They're working on that project, that's not a conflict, okay, so there's a 6th bullet now, that's.
Great,
that's-
yay.
Yeah,
The only
no.
quick question I had about it was just to have, again, with all due respect to all of these companies, having Save a Tree had a visceral reaction for me, because I know they apply pesticides, and I know they have, I don't wanna
Right.
overgeneralize, but that was the only,
I,
I'm sure Jean Zimmerman's a lovely person, it just struck me, I was
Well,
wondering.
last week, was it, or 2 weeks ago, she actually contacted me, and still fairly new, I wasn't sure, and do you wanna meet? Sure,
Oh,
so
interesting.
sat down and, and I
Sure.
spoke to Steve about it too, and he said, I kind of think of them as just tree removal, but from what you're telling me, based on your discussion with her, if they're trying to branch out into other areas or other businesses, other sectors, in terms of, she was very big on wanting to come to this meeting and speak about, how to, turn Glacier into an arboretum, into a tree inventory
Oh,
or
I
whatever,
see.
and I was like, okay, I said, I'm not gonna say no permanently, but I said, community days in September, we're trying to get maps out, I said, small steps in essence is what I was trying to say, I said, you obviously are free to bid on the RFP that's gonna come out for the planting, but I said, that's kind of where my head, and I, speaking for you too, collectively, the heads are right now over the next couple months, I don't think we're ready for
Right.
the next, so.
Well, we had very good dealings with Save a Tree last year. We had a big birch tree
Mhm.
that Con Edison's group came in and they just hacked out the middle
Right.
and the tree started to die.
Yeah, they always have with scissor hands, those things.
Yeah,
I
it was
know,
terrible, and our neighbor across the street said, you can borrow my chainsaw and take it down, we're like, well, we don't wanna take it down, and we called Save a Tree, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he came, and
Was
he
it
said.
swim?
It was
Dance
Redmond, yeah.
Redmond.
No, that wasn't the
Okay.
name. But he said what we can do is prune this,
Mhm.
and then, and around the base, we'll leave different suckers that we think would be able to take over for the tree if it does die.
Oh, okay.
And now the tree, after, this, I guess it's been 2 years, it's filling in beautifully.
Oh, nice.
And, so we, he didn't recommend taking it down, it wasn't
Right,
like, oh, this
right.
tree, you should take it down and put something else there.
Oh, good.
So
So they're really an arborist or
they
whatever,
they
yeah.
will, but if you ask them to take a tree down, they're gonna take it down, except with their tree situation where the neighbor, you're familiar with this, where they took down 165 feet of hemlock trees. And it was a big battle with the town and we finally kind of worked things out. Save a Tree would not give him an estimate to do that because all the trees were not diseased and they wanted the,
great.
and they used, who they used, but they, the same company that said these trees are all dead, came and did the job and took down the trees.
Right.
So,
But Save a Tree refused to do it.
they wouldn't do
Oh,
it.
well, that's good.
They wouldn't do the estimate.
It is good to hear. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that, alright, so maybe that helps.
yeah,
I'm glad you brought it up, no, 'cause
No,
that's
it's
what
good
the
to think
forum's
about.
for, right?
Yeah, no, we were very pleased with what they had to say.
Yeah, that's good news.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
for
for
all
all
the
the
hard
great,
work.
great.
Sorry,
We're
okay.
making progress.
Yeah, no, it's, I have to bring myself up to speed too, so these questions help me, obviously, I need to,
After a long day, I feel like you're just being kind of peppered with all of this.
No,
I'm
it's
so
all right.
excited with it. I feel guilty. I'm probably the worst with
No.
interrupting in that. But it's really exciting. It's just
This is great, we've got momentum, it feels like.
it is.
We
This is a
You gotta
good
understand, like, when I'm home and I'm not doing this, I have to give a presentation on shrubs at T-Town on August 18th, that's the Wildflower Island meeting, so, and I've already, Leia's like, the curator of Wildflower Island, cause I did one for trees a couple of years ago, she's like, this is how long it's
why don't
gonna
we
be,
pres-
I'm
why
leaving
don't
out the
we-
rhododendrons, she's like, whatever you wanna do, that's
But
fine, it
Dennis,
sounds long
why
enough.
don't we promote that though?
Yeah, why can't we do that?
Put it in the e-newsletter,
Yeah.
so members of our community can
Oh,
come and see your
yes.
presentation.
Yeah.
I was
I mean,
supposed
it's
to do
kind of-
something for the,
That would be
It's also a nice, but it also is like,
so aside that.
yeah,
and
from the town perspective, right, you're our new conservation, board, whatever, I
Coordinator.
mean, but you're not the board member, but coordinator, right?
Green tree hugger person,
No,
whatever they
I
call
mean,
it.
whatever
in
your
the
real
office.
title is, but you're speaking at
Coordinator.
T-Town, and like, that would be a cool thing for
That
people
would
to
be
know.
great, and
And
even,
then-
are you gonna discuss pollination issues at all, because then we could invite the pollinator pathways.
I honestly, it's basically the shrubs of Wildflower Island and
Cool.
They're all
the
neighbors.
non-rhodora shrubs, so I'm not dealing with the azaleas and the rhododendrons, it's just got too hairy trying to include them. And it's just more from like a botanical perspective as far as
When is that gonna be?
the
uh
18th, please.
August 18th at 10 o'clock at, it's part of the Wildflower Island, I guess, meeting.
Yeah.
And I could email Leia and, I can't imagine if you gals wanted to come, it would be an issue, but I would just forewarn her and
Sure.
say, this is what I do for a living now.
Yeah.
And this is one of the boards that, I have to meet with monthly, and they're all as excited as all of us are about this stuff, and I said, do you think they would be allowed to come to a meeting and sit in, just out of respect to her?
Oh, yeah, it's a
That-
meet-
do
oh,
I
it's a
think she would
meeting?
say no, I
Oh,
would
it's a
be
meeting.
floored if she
Okay,
said
it's a
that.
meeting.
like a
Public
public
presentation.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh, okay.
I
but
thought it was-
but to be fair, following the meeting, cause they started doing that this year, it's open gate at Wildflower
Nice.
Island, so
People can,
right, the 10 to 12, we kinda try to make it now 10 to 11 meeting, and then let's get out to the island till 1 o'clock so people can go
That would be
and
great.
do that, so.
Really fun.
But yeah, cause obviously we're a mixed bag in terms of, interests and background and education, so, someone may talk, the person who spoke last month was more from the herbal perspective, of like what these plants could do for you, I know none of that, So now me, it's gonna be, whatever, this is an alternate, this is compound, this is two, this species, has sepals on their hips as opposed to this rose that doesn't, you know what I mean, like it's like at that level, so.
great.
Fantastic.
I should also tell you, so I just met Matthew McDowell.
Oh, where'd you meet him?
Recently, with a friend of mine, Amanda Bailey from Planet Wild, you guys have heard me talk about. Anyway, we just went on a walk recently, and he was really, yeah, it was fun.
I'd say he's good.
He's good.
He's a
He
young
knows
kid,
his-
right?
yeah.
Cause honestly, not that I care about this, but obviously there's very few men that are volunteers at Wildflower Island.
Oh, I see.
And the ones that I've met so far are like older than me and,
Yeah,
but
like
been there a
retired.
while, and then all of a sudden this kid comes in and I'm just like, wow, I thought you guys were into like iPhones and high frequency trading, you know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
nice to see
no,
somebody
he's
who's
a
like,
nice
oh,
kid, and
yeah.
we talked about it, cause I said,
Yeah.
your name, cause I could recognize his name from my email, and I recognized it from the list, and then
Right.
we made the connection,
Oh,
but
that's
anyway.
cute, awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. He was a nice, very nice guy.
Great meeting,
Very
thank you
good.
very
A
much.
lot of
It was
botanizing.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for
all your
putting this all together.
Sure,
Oh,
okay.
Great.
All